All right, good evening. Thank you for having me tonight. This is our biggest audience we've had so far at these presentations, so I feel honored. I'm sure they're here for you and not for me, so I'll speed this as fast as I can. So my name is Dave Livingood. I'm the director at Western Montgomery Career and Tech Center. I've been there now for a year and 4 months, going on 5. So who we have with me tonight, I have Donna Wilson, our business manager. I'm not saying how long you've been there, and Mr. Holtzman has been there for 1 year and 6 months. So we're relatively new. Donna's our mainstay there, and she's our go-to for knowledge. I also have Mr. Hefner. Unfortunately, he could not be here tonight due to a family emergency. He's our maintenance manager, our facilities manager. A little snapshot, what I try to do is encapsulate our school now and where it's going if some of you have not been there before. The start of the school year, we had 728 students who were signed up to come. Currently, as of a couple weeks ago, we have 645. That is due to students not coming at the beginning of the year. If seats came open, we try to fill them. But the other cause of that is we had a process, which I'll discuss later, well, I'll just discuss now, where if a student was on a wait list, they had to reapply to be on the wait list. So moving forward this next school year, if you apply to the Western Center, you're automatically put onto a wait list, so we can keep those numbers up. So we have 22 CTE teachers. These 22 are from industry specific. They come hired on, such as our diesel tech teacher. He just came to us in February. He has 20 years experience as a diesel technician. He came to us from the field. He is now going back to Temple for his teacher certification. So it's a little different process for an educator in the career tech world. We have 3 student success coordinators who work with our students with IEPs, and each one is assigned to a specific school district. 5 paraprofessionals. I'll put that down. 2 counselors, 1 co-op coordinator, and 3 custodians in our building. So about 50 staff total in the building. So our mission and vision, I won't read this to you, but lifelong productive citizens in this innovative world, right? So we're there as a career center to give them jobs, meaningful jobs when they graduate. A lot of our students are not going to college. A lot of them are going into the workforce making high wages coming out. This year we went through a comprehensive plan process. 3 main goals came out of it. Increase our co-op numbers. So right now we're sitting around 55 students out on co-op. That's 32% of our senior class. We'll discuss that coming up. Next comprehensive plan goal is to look at the expansion or what we could do with inside the building to really increase our numbers. And we started looking in different areas. We are a 4-year school, so 9 through 12. And if students aren't applying in 8th grade, the likelihood of them to get in after that is very slim. So we're trying to look at the best avenue to have these students fill these seats. And the third one is make sure they have a job when they leave. Last year at the award ceremony, I had the students stand up who was going to college, who was going to the workforce, who was going to the military, and who didn't have a plan. And out of all of our kids that graduated, only 2 did not have a plan. So we're doing something right. We're getting them the jobs and putting them in the job market. So we have 17 programs. The 18th one we call is our biomedical program. That is a project lead the way. It's the little sister or brother to the engineering that you have here. So we have the biology over at our school. So we have advanced manufacturing. If you don't know what that is, that's CNC machining program. Automotive, carpentry, collision, commercial art, computer information systems, cosmetology, culinary arts, dental occupations, diesel technology, early childhood education, electrical occupations, health science technology, HVAC, intro to med careers, that's a 9th grade only program which feeds into the health occupations, protective services, sports medicine, and welding. So all of our programs have to be high-wage, in-demand jobs by the Workforce Development Board. So we just don't pick these programs and say this is what we're doing. There's data to support what programs we have here to make sure they're in the job market. So here's a school snapshot of what we have. This information had not changed. This is what we had to present to the state for our Perkins funding, federal funding. So there's a couple things on here to take note of. With 61% male, 38% female, our students, it says disabled, but I know that's not the proper terminology now, but that is how the state wants it, so I didn't change it. So we're at 30% there. Economic disadvantage, 20%. Non-trad, what is non-traditional student? It might be a male in a health program, or it might be a male in a cosmetology program. That's where we're female in a diesel technology program. So that's the non-traditional work path. The single parent, that's a student in our building who has a child. So that's where we have that single parent. And then English learner, we're at 12. And I point that number out because that number is growing. Last year, we were at 2. So that's something where we had to get better at and look forward to the future. Board, at any time, if you have any questions, please stop me and ask. So this is a snapshot per program that breaks it down. I will point out a couple key factors here. If you look at our protective services program, we have 28 non-traditional students in that program. That is a female in that program. It's a traditionally male-dominated industry. In our diesel technology program, we have 9 female students in that program, and they are sometimes better than the male students, and they're doing really good in there. So that number has increased. And then in our sports medicine program, we have 14 male students that are non-traditional. So it flips back and forth. Health occupations or health assisting has actually just came off the list of non-traditional students, so we won't record that number anymore. So I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Holtzman and talk about the applications and where we're at right now.
So this year we received 360 applications. That number just changed. We're currently processing them. The 15th was our last day for to receive applications, and we're going through per program. So the most popular program that was applied for is cosmetology. The least popular program that was applied for is dental. As far as Springford goes, there was 84 applications. Your most popular was cosmetology, and your least popular was collision. We are sitting at about 100 more students this year than we were last year, even with that drop off a little bit, and I expect that number to go up again next year. The applications that came in, we're processing through them now. A lot of great applications, a lot of great students, but as Mr. Livingood said, 8th grade is the year to apply. So the students, the way the cohort model goes, a full group of 8th grade students apply to get in as 9th graders. That entire class moves up to the next level, and another class comes in. So the only space really available are the kids that maybe decide not to go to that program, maybe move out. So that 8th grade is the time to apply. So when you look at the percentage-wise of our total applications, so again, we have Pottsgrove, Springford, and Upper Perk applying to our school. And if you look at the percentage-wise, 35% of our applications come from Pottsgrove, 25% come from Springford, and a little over 43% come from Upper Perk. We have a couple schools, parochial schools that apply, and some cyber schools that apply as well. When you start looking at percentage, the 8th grade percentage, right now at Springford, 8.32% of your 8th grade class is applying. So that's a number that we would like to grow in our school.
So some statistics where we're at right now, 32% of our senior class is on co-op. To put that in perspective, to date, about $360,000 were earned by these co-op students. Total number of hours worked, about 924 hours of school hours they worked. So when we have students going out for co-op, we're placing them all in local industries, and they're making from $15 to $24 an hour. Some of them have a 401k built into their pay. So they might be setting, there's one from this school district that I know of, a diesel technician, $20 an hour plus a $4 an hour 401k built in, and he's in a Teamster shop. So that's pretty big for a 17-year-old to have that opportunity coming out of school. Traditionally, our NOCTI scores, which is equivalent to the Keystone exam testing here, we're in the middle of the NOCTI testing right now for our seniors. We're usually in the 90s. Last year, we were at 94% of advanced or competent scores. So we like to brag about that number. That's not because of myself or Mr. Holton. That's because of our great instructors and our students that come to us. So that's a number to be proud of. And the last one is certifications. I think this is more important than NOCTI, but that's just my personal opinion. Certifications, meaningful certifications that these kids can take with them when they leave and get a job. So OSHA 10. Every student in our school has an OSHA 10 certification when they leave there. They don't lose that. If you look at our automotive program, ASE certification, that's when they go into dealerships. They have a certification. The dealership does not have to pay for that now. Our collision, we have ICAR certification, ICAR Platinum. So that's about a $5,000 certification these kids receive for free because we're an ICAR school, and they take that with them, and that's less on the employer when they come out. So all of our programs have meaningful certifications. Some are set by the state, and some others we know that local industry wants those certifications. So before I get into the budget, I'd like to discuss where the money is coming from outside of our regular budget. We had a $2,000 workforce grant from Senator Mensch before he left office. That grant allowed us to update our culinary kitchen and a couple other spaces. So our culinary kitchen is all brand new Vulcan equipment. It's to be there for 15, 20, 30 years because we invested in good equipment for these students. The kitchens will be nicer than anything they ever work in, but our students should learn on the best. And that's always been my motto. We had $379 in set aside for the ESSER funding. We did not receive as much as school districts. There was 2.5 set aside for CTEs only, and that's where we got some safety upgrades put in. We put garage grill gates on our garage doors, so our carpentry, welding, HVAC. Any garage door that was not in our fenced-in area, we put these grills on so they can open them up, have air ventilation in, and still be a secure building. We also did a camera upgrade and a PA system upgrade, bell system upgrade. Just Mere Foundation out of Westchester, she came through on a tour. She said she'll give me $50,000 to put into welding and to cosmetology. I might be going back to the well on that one too to try to get a little bit more. Competitive equipment grant, we were awarded $50,000 matching grant. With that, we bought a Hunter alignment heavy-duty 4-post lift. So what is that? What that has done, Hunter's the best in the industry right now in their automotive mechanic equipment. We're to become a Hunter heavy-duty training site. Now, in return, we bought this really expensive 4-post lift. In return, they're to give us about $70,000 a year in brand new equipment because we're their training site. So that's a new wheel balancer every year, a new alignment system every year. So they're investing back into us. Yes, it was a little bit to get started, but return on investment is a lot greater, and having industry people come in and use our space. We had an auction this summer of equipment that was left in our pool building, and that's $120,000 we raised from that auction, so that was very successful. We just had a grant last week from Martin Stone Quarries. They gave us $9,000 for hand tools in our welding program. We had 2 semi-trucks donated for our diesel program. Those were not cheap, but we got somehow coaxed them into giving to us. We also just had 2 engines donated by Ron's Concrete for the diesel program. We had 1 fire truck donated by Pottstown Hook and Ladder. It was in operation last year. It still runs. It sits in our garage. Sometimes the students get it out to make sure it still runs and pumps. So it is an active fire truck. It's just not making calls anymore. Broccolente usually gives us, which is a manufacturing company up north, about $5,000 a year for our machining program. And then we had a Gene Haas Foundation of $10,000 grant last year. The last one is something that CTE only received. We received $144,000 in a nurse grant. What that has done is specifically for the nurse. So our building is getting 6 new AEDs in the building. They say AED should be within 3 minutes. We're going to be within like 30 seconds in our school. So that's really nice to see. We're putting in stop the bleed kits. So anything I could tie back to the nurse, that's what that money was from, and that was free money from the state. So our 2023-2024 budget. So we look at a 5-year historical on this to review budget and actual expenditures and the revenue. And then look at the projected changes of enrollment. Last year we went up 100 students. So that was a big shift in where our supplies were. We asked teachers, administrators, business managers, and I've met with the superintendents, already about this. So when we're talking about teachers, supplies, textbooks, software, equipment, that all goes into their program budget. And then we review the teacher request, look at the previous program budgets, current projected enrollment for that program, and develop a preliminary budget based on that. So here's some budget highlights. I won't point out everything, but I will share the highlights here with you. So next year, the Western Center is hosting our Skills USA competition. And what is Skills USA? It is a career technical club. So it's like your DECA, FBLA, FCCLA. So per law, CTEs have to have what's called a CTSO. It has to have these clubs. So we're in District 2. We are hosting District 2 competition at our school. That happens every 12 years. So we rotate it between 6 schools, 6 CTCs in this area. So that next year is our year. The 50,000 is actually a number that Delaware County CTC has used the last 2 years to fund this. So that wasn't just a pull out of the hat, that was actual budget numbers. Increase to our utilities and supplies due to current and economic factors. You guys know this. Food's up, wood's up, metal's up. Everything we're doing there is up. Copper's up. So everything we're doing is costly. We had a decrease in our retirement PSERs to 34%, by 34%. 7% increase to our health care. $50,000 in additional funding for maintenance equipment. Currently, we have no maintenance equipment budget. The line item is 0. So if a machine breaks, we have to find out where to get that. If we need a new floor scrubber, we have to find out where to get that. So this is to help us be on the, we need it, we need some new equipment. So that's to help us offset that. A $40,000 increase in our food service. So we were budgeted at $10,000 last year. Upper Perk was our food service provider. They are pulling out. We are coming over to Springford for next year, and that's where the increase in the food service is. $100,000 increase in our building maintenance cost. So that is just our operational cost. That is not the capital funding. That has nothing to do to fix the roof or the air chillers. If all that stuff goes down, we're in trouble because we don't have the funding there or a capital reserve fund in our budget to support that. We would have to come back to the districts for that funding. So we have increased that by $100,000 to keep the building that was renovated in 2010 up to where it should be now. $85,000 increase to our IT equipment. Our staff laptops are about 6 years old. This year we went through and contracted with IU. We didn't replace an IT director. We went and contracted with IU, so we had some cost savings there. But now we have to get our laptops. The laptops from the staff are to be rotated back into the school, into our computer information system program for the students to reuse and to fix. And the last thing that I want to point out, it's not a new budget line item, but last year we put into place $30,000 in equipment for 6 programs a year. This is rotation, so every 3 years it comes back to update their equipment. What we were able to do this year was with our carpentry program. Everything in the industry now is handheld tools or battery-powered tools. It is not corded. So we were able to partner with Milwaukee and put all battery-operated tools in the school. In our computer information system, I cannot buy furniture on grants. That is a full enrolled program. And so we bought a couple of furniture. We put a nice little, I call it a fishbowl in there. So the students have a separate area to learn and a separate area to do their practice on. So that has been a huge success for us to help us maintain a facility and equipment that is in industry. So next year, HVAC, advanced manufacturing, protective service, early childhood education, dental assistant, and cosmetology are up in this budget for that. When those programs are up, they're able to apply for the competitive equipment grant and the supplemental grant. So we just took spreading all this money out and put it in the specific 6 programs so we can get more for our dollar. So here are the real numbers. So where you're at as Springford, your calculation for the budget is off your ADM for 5 years. So your average daily membership. Currently you're at 39.89%. The last couple years, Upper Perk has been catching up to you. So maybe in the next 2 or 3 years, they might surpass you as the ADMs increase. So overall, we're asking for a 4.92% increase to our budget. For Springford, that's $132,000 increase, or a 5.43% increase from where we were last year.
Mr. Livingood, may I pause for one moment? Going back to the last slide, how do you calculate average daily membership?
Donna?
That's done by our child accounting. Forms are submitted to the state, and then the state does a calculation.
Huh.
And we compare with the sending schools, their child accounting, and then we use those numbers that match to come up with that.
Okay, so I'm not sure I still have a clear sense of like what factors generally go into that. Is that number of students being participating in programs at the Western
Yes.
Center? Any other criteria?
It's the average number of days that students were there in the building. Does that make any sense?
I'm going to say yes right now. We'll keep going. I get a sense of it. We could definitely talk.
So we look at that number in October, so this is not last year, this is 21-22. So it's always the year behind because the time the state comes out with it, it's later. So that number is from 2 years ago where we were. Okay. So 4.92, yes, it is a small increase, but this is what we feel we need to operate the building and have a successful building. So overall, the happy part, Upper Perk has to pay more than you guys. So they have a 9.9% increase, right? So their numbers are increasing. We want your numbers to increase. We want Pottsgrove to increase with limited space. So any questions with that? All right, so the last slide here, I'd like to share this. These are all of our partners that come to the Western Center to either be on our Occupation Advisory Committee, to have co-op students, to come talk to our students, or somehow they're tied in to the Western Center. So it's not just right here in Royersford, Spring City, Limerick. It is this whole geographic region of Pottsgrove, and even some businesses that are in our area, our school districts, they're coming. American Crane out in Douglasville, that's Berks County, but they're coming to us to get our students. Any questions?
So before I defer to questions, thank you, Mr. Livingood and Mr. Holtzman, and I'm sorry, I don't know that I got your name when you were responding. Ms. Wilson, thank you very much for coming today. I will open it up to questions in a moment, but I will just say, you know, you have quite the complex operation over at the Western Center, and being able to experience and tour some of your programs firsthand, the one thing that I will say always sticks with me when I go over there is the passion that both your staff and the students participating in these programs really have for what they're doing. So we really appreciate you instilling, you know, these career skills and, you know, future ready skills into the greater Springford area. So thank you very much. I do want to defer to those on Zoom first, and I apologize because Dr. Wright is with us tonight on Zoom. She's been with us for quite a while, but I just hadn't had an opportunity to acknowledge her. So Dr. Wright, Mr. Schaefer, Ms. Earle, I'm going to defer to you first to see if you have any comments or questions.
Thank you. I'm fine. It was very nice, the presentation. Thank you very much.
I'm good. I've already seen the presentation. Thanks.
Yes. Thank you, Ms.
Yeah, no questions here.
Okay, wonderful. I will defer to those in the room. Any comments or questions?
So I just want to jump in. I have a couple of things I want to highlight, really. I've certainly seen the presentation before because I sit on the JOC, and I've been fortunate enough to work with Mr. Livingood, Mr. Holtzman, and Mrs. Wilson for a long time now. So grateful for that, and as they know, I'm a big advocate of the Western Center. Because you're here, though, in person, there are a couple questions I want to raise and clarifications I would like you to make so that they don't come up later when you're not here and I attempt to answer those on my own. So the first being the comprehensive plan goal number 2, and which was to increase programming, which would definitely be something that we as board members could then answer to our parents. So how does this budget address the increased enrollment or projected enrollment increase over time?
So at this time, it does not address that need, being that the comprehensive plan was just put together. We had to come up with a better plan to able to build that budget out for that expansion, and also meet with the superintendents and business managers to come up with a plan on how to fund those.
Okay,
programs.
so the takeaway then from that would be, and I heard you reference this, I just want to clarify it for the parents because, you know, Springford's numbers are down, unfortunately, and we do need to get those back up, that the parents of students and students themselves that are in 8th grade going into 9th grade really, you know, that is the target audience that really needs to get on the ball. Not that everyone else in the other grades wouldn't have an opportunity, but more likely than not, they would have a limited chance to get into one of the programs as it is becoming more and more competitive and selective over there in a good way, but where we stand now with our budget, it does not address those projected enrollment concerns, correct?
Correct. So with the competitive nature, we have put in place a rubric scoring model that we look at grades, attendance, and discipline. And then Mr. Holtzman's going through that process now to have a rubric laid out of what students by school to be put into place. In our articles of agreement is how we operate. In that articles of agreement, it does not give Springford so many slots. It does not give Pottsgrove so many slots. It does not give Upper Perk so many slots. So we are taking the best of the best who apply there to come in. So our message has been to the middle school students, 8th grade counts now to get into the Western Center. If you want a job coming out of high school that pays $50,000 to $60,000 when you walk out these doors, it counts in 8th grade. And the days, career and technology education is what we are doing over there. It's not vocational education anymore. There's STEM in every program that we do.
Thank you for that. Yes, so parents, Springford parents, heed the call. 8th grade is the time to really be thinking seriously about this. And there has been a huge increase in CTE education, career and technical education. We've talked about it at great length. I think it was always on the rise, but we think that maybe COVID had a bigger impact on that than we had realized even at the time, and we still feel that impact today. So moving on to a couple of other questions or clarifications. While the budget then specifically does not address the need to teach more kids at this time, there is quite a bit of money in that budget or allocated in that budget for building maintenance. So can you clarify the two in particular, the $50,000 and the $100,000, because I'm certain that this is going to come up again. So the $50,000 really isn't an increase because there's nothing there at this point, but that is for building maintenance equipment, such as
Floor scrubbers, any janitorial equipment. If our truck breaks down and our snowplow breaks down or any other piece of equipment that our maintenance uses, we have no way to repair it or replace it because there's no funding.
And have you ever come back to one of the districts to seek funding for something that has broken in the past?
I'm going to defer to Donna. She said no.
No, you have not come back. But as a precaution so that you wouldn't have to come back, we're going to put this $50,000 in the budget.
Well, we have to steal from other places.
Can we approach the mic just so? Yeah, thank you.
We have to steal from other places in the budget when something like that happens. So, say student activities, and I don't, maybe there's a little extra money in there for travel. So we set that aside to cover those costs. So something else suffers in the budget because we don't have money for that.
So we're stealing from Peter to pay Paul, in a sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. So then what is the difference between that $50,000, so that everybody now knows what that $50,000 is, and the $100,000 increase for building maintenance costs? Is there a certain amount that's in the budget now for the building maintenance costs that we're increasing by $100,000, or is that a new line item altogether also?
No, we have about $110,000, I think, budgeted previously. So if that is for to fix our chillers, let me give you an example. Our 6-inch main water line coming into the building is getting replaced in April. Our gate valves on that have been leaking. So when the students are out, we're getting that water line fixed. If we didn't have the auction money, if we didn't have a rollover of some money from a house project, we would have had to come somewhere to find that money. So that's about $25,000 to $30,000 right there in our 6-inch main water line. If our chiller breaks down or our boiler breaks down, $110,000 isn't enough to fix that and maintain the building.
Okay, so I understand that. So what is the difference then between the 100 and the 50?
So 50 is specifically for equipment needs to operate the building. It could be floor scrubbers, vacuums, if he needs a piece of equipment like a lift or anything that he needs to operate the building, equipment-wise, that's where that money is coming into play. So it's earmarked specifically for equipment. Where the $100,000 comes into play is operational cost.
That's more projects. Projects, repairs.
Project repairs, yes.
And then both items will remain in here going forward in each budget? Is that your plan? Is that your intention? Like, neither one is a one-shot deal, correct?
Hopefully, yes.
And I know when we were last at the last JOC meeting that we had, there was discussion around the 10-year plan too.
Yeah.
That, if I recall, I really pushed for you to do that with ICS and get on board with Mr. Hunter, and you did all of that and carried through. And then Mr. Fink had offered to meet with you to refine that and actually create a 10-year plan. Has that been completed?
Yes, so I have actually met with Mr. Hunter and talked to Mr. Fink and the superintendents about this. They felt during this presentation tonight, we weren't in the space to come with that 10-year plan. We need to meet with the business managers and superintendents to discuss our plan on how to move forward and fund these projects before we want to bring a plan to the board. So we do have a 10-year plan. I will tell you the 10-year plan, some of the stuff on there through grants, such as our security cameras, is already taken off because of grant funding. So I look for projects where grants are to start on that 10-year plan.
And you've been fabulous about chipping away with some of those things, definitely. I've seen that. My concern is, how do we know that this is what we need, this 100 and then the 50? How do we know that this is what we need if that 10-year plan hasn't been finalized?
So the 10-year plan is fixed projects. So if you're replacing all your HVAC units on the roof, you can plan out 5 years from now and say, okay, here's where that money is coming from, here's that construction project, where to go to bid, here's that project. This is just operational. This isn't a capital improvement plan. This money is for operational cost.
Okay, thank you. I hope that helps to really clarify, because we've jumped in pretty deep with this at our meetings, and I just wanted them to clarify that for Springford also.
Yeah, I know that you brought some of this up in finance committee meetings as well, and so when the 10-year plan does get finalized, I'm assuming that's going to be presented to JOC and then somehow make its way back to Springford. But I would love to be able to attend that meeting firsthand, that JOC meeting firsthand, when that is ready to be made public.
So something's wrong with my mic tonight.
I don't know.
I keeps going in and out, or you're hitting the button, I don't know.
Nope,
Am I?
it's you.
It's me? It's me? Okay. When you're going to do the 10-year plan, and I agree, because I totally agreed with them, it was too much. It was overload the night that we did it, right? At the JOC, so I would never have wanted you to do that here. I'm just asking about the stage of its completion. But when you are going to do it, I would like to open that up to the rest of the board members here and perhaps at the other two school districts. If that invitation is going to be extended here, I feel like it should be extended to those two districts as well.
Yeah, so absolutely. So I've already talked to Mr. Rizzo and other superintendents. There's some transition in business offices occurring at the other schools. So when we're all into play, maybe this summer we can all sit and discuss this a little deeper and come up with a plan. Because as the current Articles of Agreement states, any capital project is off your market share. So your market share is $8 billion. Upper Perk and Pottsgrove is $1 billion. So if we went to a capital project, that's how it would have to be funded. However, in 2010, when they did the remodel, it was adjusted and an amendment was made just for the project that 60% was your ADM and 40% was your market value. So there's a lot more discussions that occur on that 10-year plan than just a brief meeting. So that's what I want to meet with the superintendents and the business managers about.
I get that, and one of the other discussions that we're having that you're well aware of also at that table is that CTEs cannot have a traditional capital reserve fund. It is in school code, you cannot have that, but there are ways to have facility funds or maintenance costs, so I'm assuming that there's a portion of this money that's going to go there, correct?
We had to have those discussions with the business manager.
Well, right. I mean, that would be the plan now that Mark Davies, our solicitor over there, has said that we can do something like that.
Yeah, we don't have a capital reserve fund. How the Articles of Agreement states is any leftover money we have from the budget year gets rolled back to the districts or sent back to the districts. So Right now, we don't have a reserve fund or any other fund there to fund if something goes wrong. So that's a conversation we need to have at the superintendent level.
That kind of was my question all along, because you mentioned a bunch of items or costs that you may incur if something happens, but there being no reserve for that. And so my question was going to be, like, since you guys have come on, in your budgets moving forward, are you able to budget for that? But it sounds like not the traditional way we can. Because that's concerning to me. Obviously, these things are going to break or need repair, and then, you're stealing from another pot to do that. So I don't know the business office structure that you guys have there, if you have a CFO or the business managers that would be finding that unique way so that you're able to save for these things. It doesn't make sense to me. I'm a nurse, not in finance or any of these, but it doesn't, a budget is a budget, and you need to plan. So I'm interested to hear from whomever how that can happen.
It's really interesting because one of the things we've said over and over and over is how could they have done that major expansion to the tech school several years ago and not put a plan in place to maintain it? I mean, you have to maintain these things. How could that not have happened? And we've talked about that a bunch of times, and I think there was a lot of controversy at that time and a lack of agreement on that, but just say we go forward with the Spring City, we'll make sure that we have a maintenance plan in place so that all of that work, all of that effort, all of that would be continued to be addressed, and you maintain your buildings. I wasn't around when they did that before. Karen is with me on the JOC, Wendy is there. We weren't around when they did that before, but there wasn't, and neither were these guys. So we don't know how that happened or didn't happen.
And I echo what you say, Mrs. Durdorf, because I think the word that was coming to mind for me as you were talking is it doesn't seem sustainable. And we know how critical the Western Center is to the greater Western Montgomery County community and our students.
I did have another question regarding your reporting, since you did spend a lengthy, I think the most pressing concern for us is the budget, but it's the insight of the students and school snapshot provided. I can't let it go without speaking to it. Because you did spend so much time breaking out the non-traditional, is that state required reporting? And how is that? I mean, that could be another conversation, but I just think it's
So that is set by the.
It's fascinating to me
Yeah.
that there's people, why that is. I mean, I understand there's industry.
Can I
Standards.
jump in? Because that also stuck out to me in terms of just propagating gender stereotypes in terms of what females and what males do. So what is the answer to that? Is that something?
So the Perkins federal legislation is a federal law, right? So Perkins Act, we're on Perkins 5 now, that is law by the federal government. That comes then to the state. So it's federal dollars passed through the state, passed to career and technical education. So the federal government is who sets the non-traditional, or the state sets who is a non-traditional student. So we don't pick that. I will tell you, if you fall below a certain percentage, you will get a corrective action from the state that you need to fix your non-traditional numbers. We are not there. Our numbers look okay. They're not great, but they're okay. But we have combated that with our skills over stereotypes events, recruiting events. So that number is actually in those programs. Like I said, health just came off that list, and that is set by the state and the federal government. But we do have to report it per the Perkins Act.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate those events. I had my daughter attend one of them, so I very much appreciate that.
Just one more question. For the 6 programs that you're pushing through this year, was dental on there for this year coming up?
Which one?
Dental?
Yes, dental was. So dental has 2 applications. Let me
Right.
correct. I know where you're going with this. So
Okay.
dental has 2 applications. That doesn't put into account the intro to the medical or cluster. that is in there in ninth grade. So when we get those numbers will go up. To be a program in our school or to delete a program in our school, you have to have 15 students or less for 3 consecutive years. So that's in our policy. So dental is a program that is there. They have that 15 threshold. So yes, that is one of our programs, but doesn't take into account the kids coming over from intro to med.
How many years has dental been under 15 now?
3.
Oh, so we're there.
No, it has not hit. So they have like 17 students, I believe, right? They have
Oh,
17
okay,
now.
okay.
So they'd have to go for 14, and if they hit 15, it's off the table. So 6 years ago, when horticulture was dropped, their numbers decreased. So that's why for 3 years, the numbers couldn't go up, so that's why the program was removed.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments by the board? Okay, thank you, Mr. Livingood, Mr.
All
Holtzman,
right.
Ms. Wilson.
Thank you. Anytime you want to come for a tour, I love giving tours, and I have the route down, so please come over. Thank you.